I'm Robin Hoffman. I'm a public artist here in Charlottesville, and some people want to know, what's a public artist? Well, a public artist could be somebody who, visits a place like Staunton, Virginia, and discovers that it's a very unique city. I'm not really sure about it. I didn't, look at it or try to figure it out or whatever. In terms of its historical value to Virginia and also the people and the community. I've been in Virginia since 2006, but my relatives live in Northern Virginia since I think the 70s. And so I used to visit during Thanksgiving or whatever, but since I moved to Charlottesville in 2006, I realized there's so many different places in Virginia. I mean, it's like a country. You can go to one part of Virginia, it is totally different, even if it's 30 miles away, it's 40 miles away, in terms of the culture, in terms of the historical attributes, and in terms of the botanical, in terms of the environment, in terms of the trees. And I mean, Virginia is very interesting. And so as an artist, as a public artist, I go and I try to do paintings of everything. But also I like to engage and do caricatures. I've done caricatures in Staunton for the different galleries there, like to open them up and things like that, and met people. And I do caricatures standing up in front of different openings of different stores and that sort of thing. That's why I like to work in the public, because then I engage in the neighborhood. If I'm in Provincetown, or if I'm in Massachusetts, or if I'm in Canada, or for wherever, setting up a caricature event, you talk and engage with the locals, you find out what the best restaurants are. But anyway, oh, look who's here talking about Staunton. Hi, Carolyn Dull, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine. And how are you, Robin?
I'm doing fine. You look lovely. So this is a surprise. All of a sudden, I'm talking about Staunton, and there you are. Do you live in Staunton?
I actually do. I wasn't born in Staunton. It took me 6 months before I got here, but I've lived the rest of my life in Staunton. So the first thing that you need to know about Staunton is it's Staunton with a U, and it's pronounced, I tell people it's easy. People will say Aunt Ruth or Aunt Ruth. Well, we go with the Aunt version on Staunton.
This has been an interesting moment, because here I am. Hi, I'm Robin Hoffman. I'm a nurse here in Charlottesville right now giving out vaccines. And so I'm vaccinating the COVID vaccines because I was stuck in my house for the whole time. I usually teach, and then my classes were canceled because my students couldn't go into the nursing homes, and anyway, it's a mess. And so I'm like, what can I do to help? So I've been giving out the COVID vaccines. But what I want to say about that is, I think I met you, by the way. I met you in an event that was for protection of our water and our land due to poorly constructing fracking. In other words, putting pipes in, and we learned from Al Gore and Reverend Berber how that happened, that they were putting the pipes too wide, and then the chemicals that they used to chop them up and things like that. And what I want to say is the legacy of me, like the kind of nursing I did all my life led up to me sort of being involved with the climate and things like that. But as a person, Carolyn, I want to ask you a little bit about how you feel about your experiences and how your life sort of led to this moment. Do you think so?
Well, I've had an interesting life, and if if all of my life experiences led to me being former mayor and current city council member of Staunton, then that's what a strange journey we have been on. Because I can claim to I haven't decided yet what I want to do when I grow up, but I am a recovering CPA. I'm retired from that now, but I have been a carny, and I've been a musician. I played. I had a band for probably 50 years, and so that might lead to being mayor of Staunton. I'm not sure.
So as an artist, that again, that humility, that humanization of being an official, I think, it's that when I work in the public, people at first meeting each other and that sort of thing, they don't relax as well until after I start asking them about themselves and then saying that I'm basically wanting to know what your favorite things are and that sort of thing. But I imagine that working as an official, for instance, our mayor here in Charlottesville was really elected, I think, by the people, even though the city council elects the mayor. I was watching the whole thing. I was very involved with what was going on with the city because, I just felt like if I could do anything. But what happened with, I think, our mayor is that, it's very specific to her experiences. And it was so important to us that she is, in our leadership because her experiences are what we need to overcome in some ways. We need to understand and certainly go forward. It's been, and I'm watching this happen. I mean, I'm involved with it. Every city council I try to get and listen now on Zoom too, because there's so many problems in this city. There's so many problems, let's say, if you own a hotel, let alone how many people are there in Staunton?
Well, the new census figures aren't out yet, but I expect will be a little bit over 25,000.
I kind of never, I was a supervisor in a hospital. I was an administrator of a hospital. Of course, I was rank and file at some point, and then I was also in charge of talking to the FDA with some research pharmaceutical things that I did. So I kind of understand that there's all these processes. You can't just magically kind of David Dillahunt does with these videos. You can't make things happen. You can't just put green screens in your city and just everything would just be fine. But can you tell us, and if you want to, I don't know, what you would like to share, but would you tell us a little bit about the challenges and why did you become a mayor and how did you find can you tell us more about yourself and how this happened and about Staunton and the challenges?
Sure. I know you've heard the term workaholic. I've never looked at that as a bad thing. I always like to work. I like to stay busy and spent most of my life doing that. And so at a certain point I quit. I didn't quit. I just quit booking gigs. So I quit tour. I quit going around, spending a lot of time traveling and playing gigs, and so I had some free time. Clearly, not doing that. And then I saw in the paper that a woman who was on our council announced that she wasn't going to run again for re-election because she had accepted a job, and she was a nurse too. she accepted a job on the West Coast, and so she was going to be leaving. So I'm reading the paper and I'm thinking, well, we need women on the council. And so since I have this free time, I'm going to run. And if people want me to do it, they'll vote for me. And if not, I'm absolved. You know, I offered and people didn't want it, so I'm good with that. So I didn't have a particular agenda. You know, I didn't have something I was mad about or anything, but I lived in Staunton all my life. I love the city, love the people, and I have said I'm a sucker for the arts. You know, as a musician myself, I love every facet of theater and music and sculpture and painting. It's you know, I love it all. So that's a connection, I think, for and the fact that, you know, as a CPA, I think people felt comfortable with me looking at budgets and financial statements and that sort of thing. So, and I had lived here my whole life. And so I play music a lot. So some of my votes came from people who said, "Weren't you that girl that played in that band?" I said, "Yeah." "Oh, I'm rooting for you." So I had a variety of people that made up the votes that I won. I first ran for council in 2006, and I enjoyed it. It was I felt like I was contributing to the city. Because even though I was a CPA, I always worked in nonprofit or behavioral health, those kinds of environments. I was always the money person, not the clinician, but because I felt like I was a part of a team helping to make something better. So being on city council kind of was the same concept. I could read the financial statements. I could look at the capital improvement plan. I could understand all that based on my work experience, and could try to make Staunton always moving forward to a more perfect union. So I have run since then, and the term I'm in now will be over in 2022. And I never decide if I'm going to run again until the very last minute. So, because it just depends on how I feel about it. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I think that's how I got to be on council, and what I like about doing it. I get to meet a lot of people. My daughter, well, this is pre-COVID, of course, and I will say that COVID has made for a very strange life for everyone, and a hardship for many. I am blessed because I'm retired, and I have taken to heart whatever Dr. Fauci says. And of course, the best thing you can do is stay home, and I've been doing that ever since the first news of the pandemic came out. And I applaud you for doing the vaccine delivery, and I hope we get more vaccine delivered from the manufacturers as quickly as they can make it, because I think we need to be staying ahead of these variants that are coming. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, staying at home. And by the way, this is COVID hair. You know, my hair was really curly. But you know, when you don't go to a hairdresser, it grows.
As the artist of the city, you know, a representative of somebody who joins other musicians from the same community, as an artist who joins people from the community. It took me from 2006 to, you know, really at the present, to understand my community. Like Charlottesville, I did a lot of volunteerism, and I would land up, because I kind of retired to, but not really. I just sort of gave myself a year. I said, I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to volunteer the whole time I'm in Charlottesville, even if I'm working as teacher or whatever I'm doing. I'm going to volunteer and join and go to these conferences. And I was at the NRC, and I was at the Climate Action C100, and then I was at Generation 180 for solar for schools, and then I was before that I was a volunteer for the hospitals. I did things for as a patient advocate, just because there was work to do there, but also because I had my paintings, like in Martha Jefferson Hospital, and then I was the concierge. They had artists actually with a script going to the different paintings with a group of people and talking about the artists, and those were local artists. So and now what they're trying to do in Charlottesville, and I was part of the Zoom all 2020 and different conferences, really, really good. I mean, we could go to Comic-Con, we could do everything. But what they're trying to do in the planning of Charlottesville for the future is they're trying to network together all of those facets. Usually people are sort of in a disconnect, especially when the population is actually New York City. You could be in New York City and be very isolated, which is amazing. But what I want to ask you, Carolyn, is when I met you in the Reverend Berber event for the pipeline, I interviewed you with my phone because you said something and I was like, I need to see this on a video, because at the time I'm still, I think this was in 2017.
As part of the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, they were going to put a compressor station in that historically Black community, and this was a protest being held specifically for that piece of the protest against the pipeline. In Staunton, we had our own issue because the pipeline was, when it was coming from West Virginia, it was going to come through the recharge area for our Gardner Springs. In other words, where the water comes to go into the spring, it was coming through that area. And we had concerns about that because Gardner Springs provides 3 to 5 million gallons of water a day. And we have some really good water sources for Staunton, and we were really concerned about it. And so officially, Staunton had taken a position against the pipeline for those reasons, and I had testified at the Water Control Board against it, and we participated as a Friends of the Court in the lawsuit, and so we did a amicus brief on that in support of it. And so happy days. I mean, that was one good piece of good news out of 2020 when they called off that whole pipeline, because it was going to be devastating for that community down there where the event was held. And all along, I had problems with the eminent domain that they had the ability to use, which, one would think that a private company shouldn't be allowed to just do that. But anyway, it's all gone and it's good news.
Yeah, and I also got sort of involved with that as a nurse because the ramifications of the chemicals is well known in the groundwater. And so, I mean, there's plenty of journalism and plenty of evidence. Well, the journalists would go out. They would be paid by the nonprofit groups, like Sierra Club or whatever, and they go to specific areas where they were doing the fracking and take samples of the ground. But also they saw, like in Pennsylvania, people would turn their faucet up and fire would come up, so. Yeah. So there was a real concern for me because very important scientific element in our bodies is to be able to have water without chemicals. And that goes as far as like farming with Roundup and all that sort of stuff. During COVID, people started paying attention, and they came up with this idea that actually is now moving on forward of doing farming using regeneration, regenerating the plants, incorporating the organic matter back into the ground. And in the Midwest, we stripped everything from the topsoil. We stripped topsoil. We don't have enough topsoil. 500 years, topsoil's gone because of the way they farm. So there's this huge, and they actually highlighted that in a film called Kiss the Ground. What it does is it incorporates the plants that actually will regenerate the topsoil instead of just putting pesticides on top. And then the pesticides go into the water for. And then there's the whole thing about the coal too that we started realizing. People are building solar on those mountaintops so that we don't have to have gases and things like that causing asthma in our environment and for our kids at school and things like that. Did you have a lot of things like logistics that you changed because of the COVID that or for the better?
Well, I know that currently council and our various boards and commissions all have the option of using Zoom, and I think everybody is. And I've been doing that for any meetings I've had to go, whether it's the Central Shenandoah Planning District Commission or the Go Virginia group or tourism, regional tourism, all of those, they're all doing it. And it's working really well. I mean, we were fortunate that we had this technology available. If this pandemic had hit in, say, 1970, where you only had in-person or phone maybe, it would have been very difficult to conduct the business that needs to happen. But so, and our schools have worked really hard. They went totally virtual initially when the Governor Northam had closed the schools. And then they created a hybrid version so that parents could choose totally virtual or hybrid. And now there's I think they're going to look at going probably next fall, they'll be up to going in person totally, and hopefully the vaccinations will be out enough. I don't know what the percentage is that you need for herd immunity. I want to say it's like 80% or somewhere around there.
Yeah, I as an artist, very recently I went into Staunton, by the way. And it's because of COVID, just like every other city, it looks ghost town. What I thought about, and I don't know if you have any pull or whatever, because I'm right now doing 2 commissions. I'm doing something for the Ravenna River Company, and then I'm also doing something for the new takeaway restaurant in Keswick called, that used to be a post office, Boyd's Tavern. I'm doing a commission for both of them. I would love to actually help, come together with you and all the artists or whatever and talk about like some of the historical murals that I've seen in my lifetime. I worked on murals in New York City on Park Slope with an artist called Jerry Johnson, a New York artist. Anyway, what I want to say is in Quebec, for instance, in Quebec City, there's this mural that I could just imagine in one of the walls in Staunton that's like empty. It doesn't even have like the brick color on it. And I think what happened was maybe a building was taken away, and then that was what's left. So what they did in Quebec City is they made the city on the wall. So when you walk into the city in Quebec City, you think that that's part of the town. So I just want to say, talking with you is like talking with somebody that's very familiar. And I think it's because you are a very human person to me. You're a very human person to everybody else. And I think that that's the quality that we missed for 4 years with leadership. It's that we need so much to have leaders just like you and other people who are stepping up. How brave are you?
I have seen a great increase in the last 4 years or so of particularly women who are running for office and taking leadership positions. And I think that's great. It's like the notorious RBG said when asked how many women would be enough on the Supreme Court, and she said none. so what I'm looking for in the future is that, like Staunton City Council, it could be all women and nobody would notice, or it could be all Black and nobody would notice. And so when I'm hoping for a more perfect union, I really think there can come a time when none of that matters, because we'll have some equality and we'll have lack of discrimination, maybe in the maybe for my grandson, but it will come. We just have to keep working towards that.
And the arts are doing that right now. If you watch TV, if you see the movies, if you see paintings, painters are being celebrated of all cultures. And I think that is making people familiar. Like if you live in Brooklyn, you're familiar. But if you live in West Virginia, you're not familiar with a lot of cultures, not yet. But so this is what's coming together. But we need to round this up. And what I want to say is thank you so much for being, on Charlottesville Public Access TV.